So the very first thing that I do is I like to actually go in, I cut off her head, it's okay, and make sure that I follow her edge. Biggest dominant edge is always the edge that's facing the paper, right? Because that's going to tell you more than anything else. So I don't draw like a line down the center. I don't like try and like find the circle, because right now all that stuff is already answered for me, right? So I'm not going to even waste my time. All I want to do is just focus on shapes. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to accurately draw these shapes, and I'm not going to invent anything. So if you are like making up an edge and saying, I think it kind of looks like this, you are already drawing it wrong, right? Because you're not identifying her specific planes. So the key is to come in, trace her face, okay? And when you're tracing her face, I want you to be conscious of the lines that the artist is using, because that's going to teach you how to actually dictate like lines for yourself, right? Like, how is he overlapping this chin into her lip, which I think is a really important anatomical landmark, right? How many planes are there when I'm drawing a chin, right? There's three. There's one that's facing this way, there's one that's facing this way, there's one that's facing that way. So I start to break down the lines just in really simple divisions. And I don't want to make them like too complicated. And I am not going to draw through her clothes. I will draw that later. I told you guys you have extra credit if you do draw the clothing and the hair, right? Okay, so I will show you what I mean. The beard, hair, yeah, facial hair. Yeah, so her head, back of her head is right there, right? Got to make like an observation right there. So this is the only time where I'm going to move out of the drawing. Right, and I'm just going to connect these kind of just like simply right now, okay? I think that line, that color might be too close to her, so I don't want to like get lost. All right, that is the first step. Second step is when I'll come in and I will actually just draw like a really loose center line to kind of remind myself, hey, this is the center of the form. And all these things are going to make a lot more sense after today's lecture too. And that line should kind of line up right here. Okay, so that's just gonna kind of like remind me where everything is, all right? Next thing I wanna do is go in, and I like to start with the eyes, because the eyes I can see. Sometimes I say, hey, you know, try to find the planes, but if you don't know what you're looking for, it's gonna be hard to kind of make planes in the middle of this open space, right? So if I can look for the eyes, I'm going to put this on a different layer. The eyes are a really easy way to delineate placement for really complex shapes. And we're going to talk about the eyes in detail, but most orbits have like a hexagonal shape, like a stop sign. Like, is it 8-sided? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, it's like 7 or 8. So it's kind of what I look for. Octagonal. Why did I say hexagonal? Okay. Same thing with this eye. 1, 2. Remember, it's the orbit of the eye, which ends right here. It's not the eyeball. Okay. 3, 4, 5, 6. And I actually do count to myself when I draw sometimes. 7, 8. Right? So I'm looking for the 8-sided shape. This one's in perspective a little bit, so that's why it's kind of getting lost. But if I wanted to like really force it in there, I could say, hey, there's the 8-sided shape, okay, instead of the 7. So is this make-believe so far? No, I'm following what I see, okay? I'm not making anything up. So this is kind of what I'm looking for. I'm looking for the fact that, can you identify the shapes that you were seeing on the figure? And I will tell you right now that I'm seeing something very peculiar, and that is that her nose is really wide, right? The distance from here to here is huge, right? And if I just let the drawing be, like, I would be accurate. Well, it is indeed, it's huge. So I'm gonna shift it just a little bit and actually end it right where the shadow shape is, right? So it's not as huge. She might have like a really big bone right there, which is totally legit, okay? All right, I'm gonna come in. The very first thing I wanna do after the eyes is find my keystone. My keystone is this line right here and right here. You can see as soon as I put that line in, what happens is, oops, wrong layer. This center line now shifts. What does it do? Yes. So I know that I am going in the right direction if I begin to now change how the viewer begins to see the forms, okay? So I'm gonna come through and I'm gonna erase this line and I'm gonna show you how to fix it, okay? Back on the eyes. All right, so now I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna draw through her nose. The nose actually has a very specific break in planes. We're gonna talk about this break, where it actually goes inside, outside, inside, outside.
Where does the cartilage start?
Cartilage starts right where that big line is, right at her keystone. Sorry, it's like right here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna do this really, really intentionally. I like my sound effects. Shut up, brother.
That was good.
All right, and the one thing that I want you to be aware of is look at the line work. What is happening to it? It should line up. If the lines start doing this, my drawing is bad, okay? So that's what I'm looking for, okay? I'm gonna draw big shapes first. Okay, and now I need to make the shape feel like a form. There is her nostril. Okay, I can get as complicated as I want. I'm gonna just divide this into one plane. I don't need to like divide it into two planes, but if you really wanted to, you could. Okay, but one plane is totally fine. So not all planes need to connect. Sometimes they just kind of like hover. Okay, so that would be like a basic nose shape. Does everyone understand so far? Okay. I'm not gonna do the whole thing for you guys, but I'll get you guys started on the big pieces. So if I wanna draw the nostril in, right, which a lot of people might wanna do, you're not gonna get graded on it, but, right, the nostril is like a slope, right? So it wants to come through and go in. So it kinda does this. Right, kind of tucks itself in, if that makes sense. I don't think I like that line. So basically when I'm drawing, the whole time I'm like making decisions, like how do these lines connect onto the surface of the form? Which lines do I want? Do I want this line? Do I want that line? Which lines tell me more information? Is this line distracting? Which it kind of is. So I'm gonna do that one more time. Yeah, I don't like either of those shapes. So sometimes I will just like draw something in. I'll be like, nah, I'm gonna keep it simple. And we'll kind of leave it like that. All right, and then I can say, okay, well, the nose comes around like this, right? I can start to describe the slope a little bit more if I want to, but none of that stuff is gonna affect your drawing. That's just all like interior detail, okay? So no need, I don't wanna make it too complicated for you guys, but there is a simple plane right here. If I want to like advocate for that curve, I can kind of draw that in, okay? And that will kind of give her like a little curve in her nostril. Yes?
So we can draw like rounded lines too?
Yeah, of course, yeah. I just like straighter lines are gonna be more informational, okay? All right, I like to connect the dots to important landmarks. So let's draw through her nose. So I'm gonna come through. The very first thing you want to do is draw through the philtrum, which is this little indentation right here, okay? And then I'm gonna come into the philtrum and I'm gonna redraw the lips. Okay, come in. So all I'm doing is like really forcing myself to see her structure. Now, technically I could be done right here, but you're really not. You kind of want to break down this lip kind of is doing this, right? And that's doing that. And then there's a little bit of a division between the upper and lower part of the lower lip, right? I just need like one break right there. And then one break right here. So now the lips are going to start turning, okay? And then there's the muzzle of the mouth, which if I follow her mouth, comes out like this, goes around this little shadow. All right. And then comes out. Remember, we're following their anatomy. I'm not making anything up. And there's my light source. All right. And then that other side has to meet the cheek.
So you use light as your advantage? Lights.
100%. The lights are describing the values, right? We'll just kind of talk about them as values, or describing the planes, right? So I'm going to look through this side right here, and then this side right here, and I just want to make sure that they kind of meet, so that they make sense.
Which side and which side?
This side right here and this side right here are the exact same anatomical landmarks, but this is in perspective right here, right? So I'm just trying to make sure that they meet. So I'm going to drop this a little bit, just so that it kind of feels like it's going in the same direction. Does that make sense? This is pretty advanced, so you know I'm not looking for perfection like this, where like I'm overthinking everything, but I'm showing you guys how I would do it. Okay. Then I'm going to come in. And now I can kind of close off the zygomatic bone, which is just going to be a line somewhere right there. All right. I think there should be another line right here.
So this like method, is it something that like people draw like as they're drawing ahead, or it's just something to like keep in mind as you're drawing?
This is me knowing that you understand what you're looking at.
Okay.
This is you understanding that you understand what you're looking at, right?
I was wondering if this is like a step that people take.
No, what you guys do in terms of planes is pretty much the most that anyone will do while they're drawing from the model. Yeah. This is like,
3D design.
oh, for sure. What you're basically building is a polygonal model of the head. Yeah. And if you ever get into 3D design, this is what the polygons look like, right? So it will definitely help you with sculpting if you're going to be like a 3D modeler. Yeah. All right. So I think one of the hardest things to do are big open spaces. So I'm going to show you how I connect. And Yavuz was saying, oh, you look for the light. Yep. What am I drawing now?
The cheek.
Yes. What do we call the cheek?
Side.
The zygomatic, right? And you could see where it is if you just look at her shadow, okay? It's a little bit lighter on the screen, so I'm going to darken this. Do you guys see that like highlight right there? And shadow, okay? All this, these are frills, right? These are little bones that are kind of sticking out. We can use those as landmarks, but those aren't the big major landmarks, okay? And then I want to like connect the dots. So I always tell students, wherever you see a corner, those are the corners that have to meet, okay?
I have a question.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, so at the beginning you drew like the chin, and you said there's 3, but how come it doesn't go like it goes down here, but not up here, and then up? Yeah.
Her chin here?
Yeah, like how come you didn't draw it like where the jawbone looks like it's gonna be?
I didn't finish it.
Oh.
Yeah, I'll come in and draw the chin. I was just filling in the cheekbone for you guys. This right here. All right, I'll draw the jaw.
I was just confused because at the beginning, like,
Yeah.
you were drawing like the bottom part, but not like that top part. So I was wondering if there's like a reason why we
No.
drew the bottom part as the jaw.
No, I just didn't want to finish it all before I started with like the center. So let's draw the jaw, right? So the chin comes in, has like a little indentation, right? So I'm gonna follow her chin specifically. So if you're looking at the lines, where is that little arrow? There we go. it's gonna come right through there. And then it's gonna go into her ear right here, right? So I want to imagine that the planes are kind of doing this. And they're gonna shift direction right here. You can actually see Grueze's lines, right? They're kind of like, whoop, whoop, whoop. So you kind of know that they're already going that way, okay? So that's the base of her cheek, or chin, right? And I would actually draw this to indicate like her curve, right? So, boom. That way I'm actually describing that she has like a little bit of a bulbous cheek right there. Does that make sense? Okay. And the farther you get away from that like bone, right, the less bulbous these are gonna be. They're gonna start to like flatten out. I bet you don't hear bulbous very often in your life. So they'll start to do that. Does that make sense? So I'm basically carving out that sphere and then flattening it out. The hardest thing I find people have trouble with are the eyes, right? These are all the big shapes. I'm gonna let you guys figure out everything else on your drawing, but like, let's talk about the eyes. We'll draw them pretty dark. I like to imagine when I'm drawing the eyes, I already drew the line, but that's the forehead, right? This is also the forehead, right? That the eyes are gonna start coming down. So immediately I just wanna draw down, and then I'm gonna go into the eyelid. I'm gonna make her eyes a little bit darker so you guys can see. All right, it's gonna go into the eyeball, around the eyeball, up and over, and then down. And you notice, like, I'm connecting those lines, right? So I'm always thinking about, like, linear connections. Oops. So the other thing that I want to do is I want to draw the whole eye shape. And this is hard to do on this drawing because Grueze had such beautiful line work that the line work goes in and out of focus, right? It's not all clean. So you have to, like, know what you're looking at, which we will talk about, like what the eye shape is. And I call the eye shape like a little baby whale. It's kind of like, right? Because that's what it looks like. It's kind of like a whale, right? So I don't want to like draw it like an almond, right? Because it's not even. It kind of has like a wider top and a flatter bottom. It's going to come in like this. Okay, and then I will continue to draw that shape as it moves around the surface. And you're going to see it starts to look dimensional. Everyone see how I did that? And then, you know, draw the same thing for the other side. I want to like follow my rules. Here's the bottom of the eye. I'm following her specific eye shape. I'm trying not to make anything up. She's got a really narrow lower lid. Yeesh, that was a hard line to draw. All right, and the rest of it is all like this big, like, ending of her like form, okay?
This is a really good homework.
It is a very important teaching tool, even though students hate the assignment. I think it forces you to think if you do it correctly, because you have to problem solve, right? There are no like perfect answers. Like what I'm doing, somebody else could interpret it differently, right? But the lines, I'm just looking for the fact that the lines you choose make sense. And the big thing is, you know, always make sure the lines connect. Right? I'm always going in here and reconnecting all the lines so that they all feel like they're actually describing that volume of the eye, okay? Does that make sense to everybody?